What's good, YouTube? This is the only Big Green Yu-Gi-Oh! Again, back with another deck profile. This deck profile is to follow up the Flamevale Edison deck profile that I made. This is the Dandy Warrior, or Quickdraw Warrior, however you want to say it. It's pronounced different ways. I've heard it pronounced and different names for it. But this is the build that Jeff Jones played in the event that they had, which made this format popular. And this deck was really fun. It's like, if you ask a lot of people, this is probably like the most fun format other than like GOAT format, in my opinion. And I feel like this format takes a lot of skill compared to other formats that we've had in Yu-Gi-Oh! I feel like the only other formats that might take more skill than this is like the Dragon Ruler format or maybe the Necroz format. And GOAT's up there, but this is definitely one of the formats that's fun and skillful at the same time, and it can be really competitive. So I would definitely advise you guys, if you guys are bored of the current meta, build something like this that's an old format and play with your friends. So let's get right into it. 2 Quickdraw Synchron. This was the main card of the deck. I feel like 3 would be way too much, and on the build that Jeff Jones played, he only ran 2 as well. And you would normally combo this card with Dandelion, cause his effect is you can discard a card to special summon him from your hand. And what you would normally do is you discard your Dandelion, so that way you'll get the 2 tokens, and then this is virtually a free synchro from that. And you still have your normal summon, which is nice. On to 2 Debris Dragon to bring back your Dandelions from the grave and synchro summoning with them, or your Lone Fire Blossoms and synchro summoning with them. Onto the boss monsters of the deck, you play 1 Lad. He's virtually a walking solemn judgment. This card is nuts if you can summon this thing. 2 Caius. This is also one of the better monsters of the format. This card, it's like, this was pretty much like when Troop Dupe Scoop was a thing. This was virtually the Cyber Dragon of this format, that like the 3 of that everybody played in every single deck. And whenever he's summoned, Tribute Summon, you can banish a card on the field. And if it's a dark, your opponent takes 1,000 damage. So this is a good way of getting around Stardust. Or if you're playing the mirror match and they've got something like a Titanial, you can get around that because it forces Titanial to tribute itself. And speaking of Titanial. And then now on to the little plant engine, which Titanial was also part of. The 2 Lone Fire Blossoms for turboing out your Titanial or turboing out your Dandelions. And then the 2 Dandelions. This card is self-explanatory. This card is one of the reasons this format is played, and it's really fun. And it's banned today because of how broken it can be with links. But back then, you would use it for synchro fodder. On to the Searchers. You have the 1 Sangan for self-explanatory reasons, and then Super Nimble Mega Hamster, which is getting us into our flip engine. The 3 Raikos, because this card was one of those cards that when it came out, everybody played it. Like how Magician of Faith was in GOAT format, this is this format's Magician of Faith, where it seemed like every single deck played it. And then 1 Night Assailant for, it's self-explanatory. Card was really nuts back then. And 1 Morphing Jar. God, I miss this card. I miss it and I hate it at the same time. It probably should stay banned still, though. But this card is really, really fun to pull off if you have, like, no hands set and then your opponent attacks into it. And then you just draw 5 cards. The last monster of the deck, a Card Trooper. Just for getting like Lone Fire Blossom, not Lone Fire, but like possibly milling your dandies into the graveyard and getting tokens. Whenever he dies, you draw a card, and he's a 19k beater with that effect. I mean, it's way too good to not play at this time of Yu-Gi-Oh! Onto the spell cards. 3 Pot of Avarice. This was one of the only times in the game's history where this card was ever at 3. I think this might have been the only format where this card was at 3. But this card is nuts. You get to shuffle back 5 monsters into your deck and draw 2. It's not as good as Pot of Greed because you must shuffle back 5 from your graveyard into the deck. But still, I mean, it's banned to this day for good reasons. 2 Book of Moon to act as an interrupt. Or if your opponent's attacking with something like a Titanial and you don't want to take that damage, force the Titanial to either kill itself or force your opponent to book it. And then the standard, the 1 heavy, the 1 MST, they were only at 1, so you had to play them. Every deck played them. The 1 brain control for taking control of like problematic cards like Caius and stuff like that, or taking control of something and synchro withing it. And then a Foolish Burial to dump your dandy into the grave. Onto the traps, you play 2 bottomless trap hole for answering your opponent when they try to drop a Caius on you, or for if they try to drop something like a Titanium or something like that, or go into a synchro that isn't Stardust. 2 Dust Tornado, this card was played heavily back then because of MST being put to 1, so almost every deck either sided 2 or 3, or they mained 2 or 3. And I'm sorry for the beat-upness of this card. 2 D Prison, this was another card back then that if you had him, you played him. I mean, Stardust was revolutionary for his time. This is one of the only ways of outing Stardust other than like Caius, if you can drop a Caius. So you had to play it. And then onto the 1-ofs for the traps. The 1 Mirror Force because it was at 1. The 1 Call of Haunted. The TT because it was only at 1. The Starlight Road because Stardust was just way too good to not pass up. And whenever your opponent TTs you or Mirror Forces you, or they go in Black Rose and blow up the board, you virtually win the game when you activate this. And then Solemn Judgment, I say it in every video, best trap card in the game's history, if not the best card in the game's history. And then again, my extra deck is always the same for these type of formats because I play a lot of formats from 2009 and 2010. So my extra deck is virtually always the same. So you guys don't have to go off of this extra deck. This is just to help you guys on what you want to play in your extra deck. So like a Magical Android, Goyo Gaia. If you guys seen my other videos, this looks very similar. I mean, Black Roses, Stardust, Thunder Ruler. Oh, Thought Ruler, my bad. Colossal, Red Dragon, Ally, Sea Dragon, Brio, Mistworm. But the things that you do need to play, because Jeff Jones specifically played these in his. Play 1 Ancient Fairy. It's good. Making this card first turn with Quickdraw is a very, very, very strong play. Because you get a 3000 beat stick, you get a normal summon, and then a special summon off this. This card can potentially let you open up with like this and another Synchro. This card is very strong, so I feel like you definitely should be playing this card. And then 2 Drill Warrior because it was like if this is the only deck, unless if you want to play Quick Draw in your other decks, but the only way of making this was with Quick Draw, so you definitely wanted to play this. And Junk Archer, Turbo Warrior, and then Nitro Warrior, which Nitro Warrior is really strong. I try to make him every game that I possibly can because this card is just way too strong to not make. And this was the Edison build of Quick Draw Warrior or Dandy Warrior. I don't know what I'm just going to look at what Jeff Jones called it in his build, and then I'll call it by Jeff Jones, whatever Jeff Jones called it. I believe he called it, when he topped, I believe it was called Dandy Warrior or something like that, or Quick Draw Dandy. I'll just label it as whatever Jeff Jones labeled it as. But I am bringing Doom Cow Cat here soon, and I'm probably going to be bringing the Blackwing deck that I have. And the Blackwing deck you can play in both the X-Saber format that I play and Edison format because it's exactly the same. There were no hits on Blackwings. Blackwings were one of those decks. It's like Burning Abyss today, how Burning Abyss just never gets hit and it never dies. Blackwings was one of those decks back then that no matter what you did to it, I mean, it was just way too good. Anyways, guys, this has been the Only Big Green Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Johnny. If you didn't like the video, dislike it. And if you don't like my channel, unsubscribe. I'll see you guys later.